Peggy 16.
I think that what makes us really stand out is just the scope and depth of our features and mechanics, coupled with a narrative that is hopefully genuinely compelling and thought-provoking.
It's a very honest homage to RPG games with a nostalgic, traditional RPG feel, but there's also some new features like our asynchronous features that allow the community to come together and to foster connections inside the game as well as outside of the game. Players can trade items with each other, so I think that's quite exciting. There's a voice in the darkness, so you're able to give up something called a reset charge, which allows you to revive a player in another world after they have run out of their reset charges. So that can be quite a good feeling because it says player whoever has saved you from peril, basically. There's another feature called Into the Ether, which I really like, where you can throw an item into the ether and a player will get it on the other side, and then it will be ether touched, which gives it some additional kind of benefits. So yeah, there's lots of features that are cooperative, and I'm very curious to see what players do and if they choose to do that.
One of the most common items that players will want to trade between each other are the cartograms themselves. Cartograms are the levels that you play in the game, but these can be thought of as blueprints because they're actually items that you carry in your inventory and they drop from enemies. Each one comes imprinted with some randomized elements, which will make you have to think about how you approach it. As you progress through the game, you'll find a lot of sort of, if you like, loot, which is equipment that the player wears. The loot system is randomly generated from enemies, and we also have a crafting system in the game where you can reroll stats and you can move stats around to modify them just enough so that they improve to fit your build. As you play, you'll also be able to unlock new abilities, which is what the combat revolves around. Some of the abilities are actually tied to the ancient technology as opposed to the modern one.
Some of them are tied to the weapons, but there's also shared abilities that can be used with any build, and there's also an ultimate ability that you get later in the game.
You also want to be asking yourself, when using these abilities, what kind of damage do you want to be doing? So you may want to be selecting abilities that really lean into the elemental type of damage that your weapon does. If you have a frost-based weapon, for instance, you'll be choosing abilities that have frost-based damage or inherit that damage from the weapon.
Each different cartogram will have different ways that it needs to be solved. So the point is to be able to create different builds and to allow players to have that level of complexity and that layer of theory craft in their build. But then also it does require some sense of mastery, like some of the skills require perfect timing, parries and dodges. So there's also that aspect to it.
There's a lot of opportunity for players to really play their way. And I think they're really going to enjoy it.
Peggy 16.
One of the things we were conscious of when creating this idea of a monolith is that we wanted to make sure there was still variety in there. So we did actually create 4 very distinct different biomes. These reflect certain almost philosophical principles of life, if you like, and each one, in terms of its art direction, is meant to kind of invoke certain feelings. You will also see some very unique areas which lead more towards the supernatural and divine aspects of the mysteries that this ancient civilization has uncovered.
So players will encounter lots of different enemy types within the monolith. So they are ancient automatons that are trying to protect areas in the different biomes, and they all have different styles of gameplay and all have different methods of defeating them.
This is sort of tied to the cartogram system. We put a lot of information up front in those cartograms, including what boss you'll face. And we also have something we call a dynamic difficulty indicator, which in real time takes into account your own power levels, such as the level of your character and what resistances you have, and compares that to the cartogram. It's just a loose indicator. It's not meant to be taken completely literally, but we do suggest which cartogram is maybe within your power level.
In Empyreal, there's 9 different characters, and each of them have their own unique backstories. So all of them have their own motivations and reasons for being there, and they all have different takes on what's happening inside the Monolith.
I see the rumors were true.
Each of them is intended to be a very unique personality, and they've all had to sacrifice a great deal to be here, and they're all concerned about the future, and they're concerned about what they found.
It's very dangerous here. You shouldn't have come here.
Each of their quest lines have multiple endings depending on how you speak to them and what you do within the game. So it's gonna basically, everyone's end game can look quite different depending on how you've treated different characters.
What I hope is that players will resonate with these characters, that they will have their favorites. I mean, I'm probably biased, but I think they're one of the most interesting aspects of the game.
There are many, many things that I'm proud of with Empyreal, but I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is the amount of complexity that we've managed to add to the game in a positive way. So every time players will play, they will probably discover something new, or they will uncover a new feature.
I think the mystery is going to be one that's going to really excite players. This is a game that doesn't necessarily force feed information to the player. They're going to be rewarded for their curiosity.
Empyreal is a self-contained story, but the universe is very expansive. The people who belong in this world, including your player character, they know a lot about the history, they know a lot about the entities, about the civilizations, about the warring powers.
When you're creating any kind of new IP or any kind of RPG game world, you really need to think about the whole context of the world as well. So there is definitely scope for more in this universe, and we've definitely thought about how that could be utilized in the future.